You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. If you trade options, you want to be smart about every decision. So why not choose the smartest platform for your trades? At Public.com, you can view upcoming earnings dates directly in the options chain. You can queue and execute multiple orders simultaneously. Easily view contract performance over time. And if you have a question about any stock, you can ask Alpha, their AI for investors. But want to know the smartest part of trading options on Public? Earning rebates on every single contract traded. No other platform provides options trading rebates, and they reduce your trading costs to less than $0 per trade. So, make the smart move and switch to Public.com, the only options trading platform where you can earn rebates on every single contract traded. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures in podcast description. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is time to rock out here on your favorite options podcast network. We're really the only one, but hey, we'll take favorite status nonetheless. My name, of course, Mark Longo. Hope you had a great weekend out there. Hope you're ready and raring to go for another fun trading week. Of course, like what you hear of this show, anything else on the network, throw a like, a star, a comment, a rating, a review on whatever platform you get it on. At the end of the day, all that stuff in aggregate does help new people continue to discover the content. And if you too want to discover more content in your lives, you want to get awesome pro Q&As, had a great one last week, talking all things volatility with Mr. Vixologist. Should you sell puts and SFIX? Should you not? All kinds of fun. We went deep, as well as options oddities. I got to say, I may be biased, but options oddities last week, I think the technical term was a freaking banger. Man, we were making some money on some of those trades on Fridays. That was kind of fun. So if you want to see what all the brouhaha, all the hubbub is about, only one place to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. You get those two shows coming in your ear holes every week. You also get early access. Like you already got my conversation I had with the Peakbot folks. That's coming up this week. You get all kinds of other bonus fun. You get giveaways. You get live streams. But you get the meat. You get those two extra shows. It's like almost 400 episodes waiting for you now. When you go over it kind of really is a ridiculous value. I say as I lose my voice already here to kick off the weeks, as I reach for a lozenge. Going to be a long week on the old vocal front, listener. Slow to recover on the vocal front this week for whatever reason. I think that Metallica concert was the final nail in the coffin after my voice was already destroyed. The week leading up to that. But speaking of weeks, we're kicking off a week here in Chicago, listeners. It's convention time again in the city, and it just looks very awesome and welcoming everywhere you go in Chicago. Just massive walls and armies of police. So maybe if you don't have to be in Chi-Town this week with helicopters flying overhead, reportedly sniffing for radiation in the air. Of course, literal armed boats going up and down the river. It's an interesting time to be in Chicago. If you don't have to be here, probably skip town this week, but intriguing nonetheless. It also makes for good fodder for some trivia, hint, hint, coming up in a little bit, as I am joined today on the show by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, as well as by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, as we kick off our broadcast week with a little bit of fun, as we like to do with our 80s Trivia Challenge. Here we go. All right, listeners, let's get into it. And the obvious question this week, given everything going on in Chi-Town this week, is, let's make it geared around political conventions. So let's look at, maybe the obvious question is, how many political conventions did Chicago have in the 1980s? And I'll save you that one. I was thought about doing that for a trick question. The answer is none. There were no political conventions in Chicago in the 1980s. The lingering specter of the 1968 debate, that's what everyone thinks of when they think of Chicago and political. They think of 1968, probably one of the worst, most poorly handled conventions in modern political history, happened to be in Chicago. So folks remember that for a while. They didn't tend to come back to Chicago for a while. So nothing in the 80s. But that said, even with that long hiatus where there were no political conventions in Chicago, guess what? Chicago is still the leader in political conventions versus any other city in the country by a country mile. Nobody else even comes close. So Chi-Town reigns supreme as the one town to rule them all when it comes to Democratic and Republican, both party conventions out there, as I say as I lose my voice again. So now, I put it out to you folks. We're going to do the closest wins. It's not Price of Right rules. You can't go out and guess one. So whoever wants to buzz in first, how many political conventions have we had in Chicago in total? All right, Tosaw, buzzing in first, going hard at it. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, go for it.
9.
Interesting. That is not correct, so I will turn it over to Mr. Rock Lobster. Whoever is closest will win. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, think carefully.
I'm going to go 4.
Oh.
You should have just done 8 or 10.
You went the wrong direction. If you had gone 10, you would be the winner. I see, Mama Lobster cannot get mad at me for that. Because
10?
It is way more than 10. Hint, hint. It is a ton. This year, this DNC is the 26th political convention to be held in Chicago. So nothing else.
Hold it. Presidential convention?
Yes. Chicago is the king.
We only had 47 elections. So 1 out of every 2?
That's what I'm saying. Chi-Town. Well, no. Because it's both parties, remember.
I guess way low. Obviously.
Yeah, it's both parties. So there's going to be 2 every year, but still. Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, but I'm just saying, do the Republicans even go to Chicago?
Well, they haven't in a while, I don't think, but they did back in the day when right down the street from the studio they nominated Lincoln, like literally steps from the front of the studio. So there we go.
The last time a Republican has been in Chicago is Abe Lincoln.
Probably.
That sounds about right.
Well, the last time a Republican has won anything in Chicago, maybe Ronald Reagan, maybe.
Well, George Bush, 1988 was the last Republican to win Illinois.
There we go. Well, avoiding a political morass. Instead, let's do this. I'll give you guys both a chance for bonus points here. All right. I mentioned the 1968 Democratic Convention was a debacle here. The scenes of the Hilton Dan Rather getting mugged on the floor of the convention. It's still legendary in political circles. So people stayed away from Chicago for a while. Even with that long hiatus, Chicago's still kicking the crap out of every other city, which is kind of interesting on this front. So my question to you, bonus point, you can get a half a point. When was the first political convention after 1968 in Chicago? Take a guess. Andrew, you're first. Good.
All right, I'm gonna guess. It was like Clinton? Was it Clinton in '92?
Interesting. Close but no cigar. Mr. Uncle Mike, can you steal?
I'm gonna go with Clinton in '96.
Yes. Oh man. Oh man, Uncle Mike swooping in there just to put the nail in the coffin even more. Oh. Andrew, you were so close today. You could have just gone 10 and you would have won. And you just said 90, you said Clinton, and you just said 96, you would have had it. Oh, man.
Well, I guess you know what? It was closer.
I plead innocence. Mama Lobster, don't come for me. I'm trying to let your son have a fair fighting chance. He just refuses to do so as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, listeners, did you guess that? Did you guess Chicago has such a commanding lead in political conventions? I certainly did not when I started looking at the data there. I would have probably guessed, if I had to guess, probably somewhere in the dozen or so range. That seems like a fair number, not double that, more than that. So Chi-Town, clearly the place to be when it comes to political action out there, which also dovetails nicely with our question of the week this week, saying quite simply, it's convention time in Chicago once again, DNC 2024 kicking off today, which raises the question, do you expect the convention to have any material impact on volatility and markets this week, or is it just another dog and pony show? You folks already vote and just went live right before showtime. We'll reveal the results a little bit later. Right now, the markets overall are kind of liking a nice start to the week here. Pretty much everything across the board, all the major indexes up pretty much exactly 0.5%. Small caps, as they are wont to do, doing a little bit different. They're going up 0.75% today. And VIX continues to take it on the chin, 14 3/4, down a full point from where it was on the Thursday show. SVIX continuing to climb. Go SVIX calls, go. That was a fun one from Options Oddities on Friday. Continues, or actually the Friday before last Friday. Continues to be a good one today. And VVIX at a whopping 109 when we kicked off the show. That's down. Let me just check that to make sure. Yeah, 101. That sounds better. They didn't update that. That sounds like that was the last show. All right, yeah, 101 right now. That would put it down 8 points. I knew it was closer to triple digits. 8 points from where it was this time last week. All right, a lot to unpack out there. Let's go now to, once again, our winner, who somehow manages to just stick the dagger in yet again this week. By the way, coming into today, the score was a commanding 14 Tosaw to 5.5. Andrew, now make that 14.5 Tosaw. So he's up by a whopping 9 points. Andrew needs to literally knock the cover off the ball pretty much every week for the rest of the year. Then maybe he has a chance. So you have your work cut out for you, Mr. Rock Lobster. In the meantime, Mr. Uncle Mike, if you have any other thoughts on political conventions in Chi-Town, have at it. And then B, what's catching your eye on yet another Uncle Mike type of day?
Yeah, so that's an interesting statistic. So Lincoln was the last Republican convention in Chicago?
I don't think that's correct. They have come back since. I was joking, but I don't know the exact date.
Because I was going to say, that seems about right. Chicago, not trying to be political, but Chicago's not exactly known for the Republican Party.
Also, the Republicans of Lincoln era are a little bit different than the ones today.
That's a topic for another day. But anyway.
All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, what you got?
Well, the whole world is watching. So don't know if you caught my political convention reference there from Chicago, but the whole world is watching. So let's talk about markets. We got the S&P up really nicely today, up 0.5% to start off the week. We got a new monthly expiration cycle starting today. Not that that means anything anymore with the DTEs, of course, but we do have that. We do have a nice little and a little rally going in bonds. Looking at the 10-year and the corporates, so we're up probably about 0.2% in the 10-year land from the price itself. So that's something for the bulls, if you will. We have silver up 25 cents on the day, up 1%. So it's kind of interesting. Markets never move exactly in lockstep. In that when everything was down last week, now everything is up today, but not a lot. So we do have that in terms of any individual names that are really sticking out to me. McDonald's, if you're into McDonald's, you're saying I'm loving it. That's up over 3% today, up $9 on the day. Some other individual names, Tesla's up 2% today. NVIDIA's back over the 125 mark again. It's at the 127 level. So we're definitely going somewhere with NVIDIA, or it's going up again, I should say. Going, I don't know. We'll see, but it's definitely going for now. I was seeing that. Disney is actually above the 90 handle again. That stock is something that just can't get any love, but today it is. So overall, today is fairly broad based from everything. It's not like one thing is really pushing up the markets. Energy is up, and I'm looking at the sector ETFs. Energy is up 1%, and consumer discretionary is up around 1%, but everything else is up roughly 0.5%. So this is spread out pretty nicely throughout the entire market, which is always nice to see. The one thing that just sticks out to me is kind of weird on the day. I didn't know this was possible, and maybe we can comment on this a little bit more. The market's higher, but Apple is down 1% on the day today. I didn't know such a thing was even possible. So we have that, and we have the DNC coming up this week, so it'll be interesting to see what our audience says on the poll for it. And that's what I'm seeing.
That is what we're seeing. Indeed, you're right. That didn't used to be possible. You know, Apple used to lead the way, and if Apple was green, the markets were green. If Apple was red, the markets were red. These days, I don't know. Maybe you could argue that that throne, that crown, that torch, that scepter has been passed to NVIDIA out there. Let's go now to the shores of Maine and the hallowed halls of the Giovinazzi compound. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what's catching your eye out there in the markets today?
Well, as Mr. Tosaw said, we do have some bullish activity with NVIDIA going into earnings. If anybody is scoring at home, how close are we to an all-time high in SPX? Let's just take a little look-see here. The Q is still about 5% off its highs, but I think 500 was the magical spot. And SPX over, let's see, we'll go 3 months. SPX peaked intraday at 56.64, and we are, 80 points away from that. So, what is that? A 1% move, 1.5% move. We're trading at a 1475 VIX. I mean, you know, what are you going to do there with that? So what I would say is, looking at what we've got, I thought, just watching the rally from the bottom and the, I guess like the strange mechanical action, there was very little appetite for people to keep selling stock. I mean, it's one thing for the vol selling books to come in and sell more vol, but it's another that, the stocks get taken up like 400 points, almost 500 points in SPX in 2 weeks. Somebody's buying stocks and they're looking at, and I think ultimately you could look at what's going on with the government, with the deficit. You always like, who's the president, who's the nominee, how they got the nomination. There's of course, lots of questions around all this that nobody actually seems to be talking about. Maybe that's better. But the reality is earnings are up 10% year over year. Companies are finding a way to still make money. Earnings expectations, I think, are still positive for next year. Maybe Uncle Sam stopped spending money. I don't think Kamala's VP Harris's economic program was a little, funding it, I think, might be a little difficult. But when has that stopped any politician? So you're not, I think from a political point of view, it seems like these are the two candidates we have. Love them or hate them. That's what we're stuck with. Maybe JFK wild card. I'm kind of excited to see what happens on the Democratic convention floor, but I don't think stocks care, at least right now. Volatility cares because, again, there's, who knows what's going to happen to like election voting and all that kind of stuff. We assume it will go normally. But besides the kink in volatility for November, the market is pretty much still moving at a pretty healthy clip back up and trying to retake all its gains. I think big tech will take a little while longer because the earnings weren't perfect. Maybe NVIDIA has perfect earnings and can, generate a 6, 7, 8 point move up. Possible. But for right now, whatever stocks are selling, the market, traders want it. So you could almost see it like, well, when Monday had no follow through on Tuesday, some of my students we were laughing. Okay, well, where can volatility go back to? Well, volatility go back to 14, and we're there. So, it paid us pretty well in some positions. SPY could go back up. That paid us a little bit, but at least right now, the corporate earnings growth thing is still happening, which in general is pretty good. Again, 10% year over year. It's not some crazy, but it's solid. So the inflation or the recession narrative, at least for right now, is I feel like it's on the back burner. And we have Powell speaks Friday, and we have the FOMC minutes Wednesday. What are they going to do? Surprised by raising rates? I think they might say a rate cut might be possible, but again, as long as the government has been spending what it's spending, Powell has been pretty steady keeping rates where they are. So until that changes, I don't see that changing, but I could be wrong.
By the way, if you're wondering, the next closest cities runner-up in terms of a number of political conventions to Chicago are Philly and Baltimore. They've each hosted 13, so a paltry half of what.
Wow, I would have guessed New York.
You would have thought New York would be somewhere in there, but no. Baltimore, smoking New York, and Chicago, Chi-Town, smoking them all. By the way, it looks like the last time I could see the Republicans were here, 1960, but don't quote me on that, listeners. I think 68 screwed it up for everybody. Nobody wanted to come back after that. Until recently again. So intriguing stuff. Let's see if the markets are intriguing out there today. And the answer is kind of depends where you're looking out there, listeners. What kind of day you are having out there. Let's start as we are wont to do out there in VIX land. See what's lighting up the tape out there. And it's decent, especially considering where we are right now. Take away the ADV, which is absurd. About 1.2 million contracts a day. Take that away. I mean, the dog days of summer, you're putting up 1.2 million contracts a day in VIX. That's going to skew things a little bit. Take away that perception, and it's actually a pretty heavy day. 682,000 contracts on the tape. I mean, they are on pace, actually, to still hit that ADV. So just we've seen heavier starts to the session recently. The big dog out there today, 71,000 of the October 20s. Interesting. Let's take a look at those bad boys. Those went up for about $1.75, listeners. 70,000 of the Oct 20s for $1.75. You like those? I'm looking here, no spread, no nothing. Pretty much just actually $1.76 is where they mostly printed. So pretty much lifting the offer on these bad boys. Huh. Intriguing. We were just talking about the Oct 18 puts. Maybe the Oct 20s are your huckleberry. Maybe we need to have a flash poll, those two against each other. Might be kind of fun. Either way, that's your big dog out here today. A SPY actually looking kind of light, 4.2 million. We expect it to be about 4.35 or so. So again, not that light. It's kind of just treading water for the most part. The ADV still a pretty impressive 8.6 million. The S also looking kind of light, 1.5 million. We expect the S to be about 1.75 million. The ADV 3.36 million. It could hit that today. I mean, it's pretty much exactly a little under actually halfway there right now, but it's kind of light. So we'll see if it can roll into its ADV there today. And then we got the Qs also looking pretty light, 771,000. Now normally that would be a banger day. You'd say, wow, that's a heavy day for the Qs, but the ADV is a ridiculous nearly 2 million contracts a day right now. So that's actually kind of light. And the Qs also light, 2 million pretty much exactly. Qs this time of day, usually expect them to be about 2.25 million, ADV 4.1 million. So still kind of on pace to maybe hit that ADV, but lighter than we expect them this time of the show. So intriguing stuff. Is that narrative continuing out there into the single names? The answer is yes. It's kind of a light day in single names as well. It seems like everybody keeping their powder dry ahead of NVIDIA and, of course, Jackson Hole. Maybe a smattering of political convention noise as well. Number 10, we got SoFi. Cost you 189,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That's the kind of paper we tend to expect this time of year. $1.60 to $1.80. That kind of makes more sense than what we've been seeing out there of late. That's dog days of summer paper. That gets us to SoFi, 742, up 42 cents, or nearly actually exactly 6% today. So SoFi looking hot today. I don't see any news off the top of my screens here that's driving it, but looking pretty hot today. On the year, they're still down though. They're still down almost $1 or about 11% from where they were a year ago, and from their highs in December of $10.50. They're about $3 below that right now. So intriguing run here for SoFi. Number 10, 189,000 contracts. Number 9, for a while there, this name I used to joke, if this was in our top 10, you knew things were sleepy. Then, of course, this whole AI war started off, and Google, Alphabet, they were at the kind of the bleeding edge, the vanguard of this AI spear, this AI war here. And so now we saw Alphabet in there a lot. Lately, we haven't seen the old Google in the top 10 again until today. Number 9, 190,000. Are we going back to that old narrative? It has to be kind of sleepy to get Alphabet into our top 10. Maybe that's the case. 190 for number 9, that's Alphabet. 165.65, up 265. Or 1.65%. A lot of 65s out there in Alphabet land today. Good for number 9. Number 8, listeners, FUBO TV. When's the last time we said FUBO TV on this? Now, I don't know if we ever have, listeners, but today is that day. If you've been waiting 17 and a half years for us to say FUBO TV on the network, well, today is your Huckleberry. FUBO has some corporate action nonsense obviously going on out there. 21.33% is what they're up today, up 33 cents to $1.88. Good for 210,000 contracts. Let's just look. I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably the 1/2s and maybe the 2 calls are leading the dance. Let's see. 2 calls. It's like I've done this before, listeners. 46,000 of those bad boys taking the number 1 spot. And actually, number 2 is actually even more optimistic. I undersold the optimism. It's the 3 calls. 20,000 of those for number 2. Let's look really quickly. What are those going up for? Oh, a whopping dime. Some for a nickel, so it's a better do, as they say. But I don't know, a dime. The stock was just $1.33 just this morning. So yeah. Interesting stuff. FUBO TV. Was that on your radar, listeners? Number 8, 210,000 contracts. Then we move on to number 7. Now we're starting to get more of some of the traditional names. Number 7 is the Amazonians. 177.25, up about a quarter. So a fraction of a percent today. Good for 226,000. And the number 7 spot. Number 6, Palantir, 32.17, up about a dime today. They've had a kind of a tumultuous month. They were down to $24 pretty much even, and now up $8 and more, up to 32 and change. So interesting little run since the sell-off on August 5th. They've had a nice little run of about $8. Good for number 6, 245,000. They seem to be a perennial top 10, or at least for now. So is this next name, number 5. Everything old is new again. It's Intel. 21.38, up about $0.50 or 2.5%. Good for number 5, and 418,000 contracts. Number 4, it's the fruit company. Uncle Mike was just talking about this one. It is kind of interesting. 223.87, off $2.18, or about exactly 1% today. So I guess they finally have to turn around out here. We did get to 237 in about a quarter in this name. So man, they have been on the rampage since that stock buyback. Just crazy town out there. Number 4, 465,000 contracts. Number 3, keeping it in the A tech names, is AMD, 152.25, up 3.75 actually, or 2.5%. They announced some M&A action out there today. They bought ZT Systems, and usually the acquirer doesn't rally, but in this case they are about 2 2/3% today. Good for number 3, 560,000 contracts. You know what number 2 and number 1 are? It's just a question of to what degree. Number 2, it's Tesla, 220.5, up $4.50, or about 2%. So back north of that 200 handle that they seemed well below just back on August 7th, 191.75. So they've rallied nicely out there. 29 handles pretty much exactly from that low. Good for 1.08 million contracts today. And the number 1, the big dog out there, NVIDIA. Everyone's waiting. It's NVIDIA's market. We're all just living in it. Or maybe is it Powell's market? We're all just living in it. Waiting for Jackson Hole. Maybe a little bit of both. We got both on the docket this week. NVIDIA, about 2.5 million contracts. 128.08, up about $3.50 or 2.8% for the number 1 spot. If you're looking for some more earnings this week, we got some for you. We got today Palo Alto. Tomorrow we have Lowe's. So if you didn't get enough with Home Depot and all that fun, let's go out to Lowe's. Wednesday, we got Target. Just had Walmart. Now we'll get Target. Macy's. So you got more retail on Wednesday. Snowflake as well. They're hot. They're cold. They're hot. They're cold. Let's see what they are this cycle. Zoom. Man, is there a better example of a COVID-related superstar kind of falling off than Zoom? We'll see. Maybe they have some good news for us on Wednesday. Peloton, another one, man. 2 back-to-back, 2 COVID superstars that have, I think to put it mildly, seen better days. BJ's, Intuit, and Ross Dress for Less. Tosaw's favorite fashion outlet on Wednesday. So some more hot stuff popping off out there. You folks can see it for yourselves because we like you folks out there. You know what? We do have earnings move results for you out there as well, listeners. We have more updated reports for you on the website right now because we like you folks. If you go over there right now, let's go to get some retail love. Let's go to Macy's, 21st before the bell. 1770 is where they were trading when we ran this report this morning. They were pricing in $1.70. In the past, they moved to $1.83. So keeping things a little in line, slightly lower, actually. So they didn't get the memo out there in Macy's land. Target. Let's see if Target has a little bit of action. 21st before the bell as well. 144, pretty much even is where they were trading. They're pricing in $10.20. In the past, they moved $12.30. So taking $2.10 off the top in Target. Wow. They didn't get the memo out there either. Let's go to TJX Companies, of course, the parents of TJ Maxx and, all that stuff. This actually was a subsidiary of Zehrs. Wait, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Zehrs, back in the day. TJX, 21st before the bell. 111 and about a half is where they were trading when we ran this report. They were pricing in $4.65. In the past, they moved $4.17. So they got the memo out there. Let's go out to Snowflake, 21st after the bell. 128 even is where they were trading. They were pricing in $13.04. In the past, they moved $14.81. Wow, taking almost $1.77, about $1.75 off the top there as well. Oh, interesting. And we just talked about Zoom, the darling of the pandemic. Maybe not so much anymore. 21st after the bell as well. 58.07 is where they were trading. They're pricing in 4 2/3. In the past, they've moved 4.10. So they got the memo out there in Zoom land. Let's go a couple more. Let's go back out to, not retail, but wholesale. BJ's, 22nd before the bell. 22nd, an inauspicious day. 86.65. If you know, listeners. 86.65, I should say, is where it was trading. They were pricing in 5.06. In the past, they moved about $6.50. So taking about $1.50 off the top there as well. My goodness. So intriguing second half of the earnings season. Maybe not quite as optimistic as we saw in the first half. The first half was a banger. 110% week 1, 138% week 2, 114% week 3. Then week 4 kind of fell off, 91%. The first red we've seen in a while in our reports, listeners. Week 5 got back to 104%, but that has taken our average all the way down, at least for this season, from, it was 130 odd percent not too long ago, down to 108%. Now that's still explosive, but it's even below our long-term average, which goes back the trailing 12 quarters, so 3 years, of 113%. So interesting. Our trivia question we asked not too long ago, our question of the week was, do you think this cycle will come in above or below that long-term average of 113%? A lot of you, most of you said yes. So interesting. Perhaps that shall not be the case, but what will come to pass nonetheless is the odd block. So let's get to it.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild. It's like our chat. Speaking of weird and wild, they're all getting caught up in FUBO TV. I can't blame you. They looked up what was going on out there. They said it's up in the morning session after the company won a preliminary injunction against the launch of Venue Sports, a joint venture between Walt Disney, Fox Corp, and Warner Brothers Discovery. So FUBO argued that that new joint venture would have monopolized 80% of live broadcast sports content. So there you go. That's why FUBO was rallying, taking it to the big dogs out there. And our chat just liking to say FUBO like me. It's a fun name to say. Unfortunately, no FUBO in the odd block this week. Listen, let's go back to a more, I would say staid, but it's kind of moving out there today. This is telephone and data systems. We've had some debate in the past on the show about exactly what this name is, what they do, and whether people on the show have traded it in the past or not. It's a confusing one for a lot of people. Trading $21 pretty much even today, up about half a buck or 2.5%. So a good day for them. On the year, they're up $3 or 17%. So a good year. They were about $18 a year ago, so up about exactly $3, as I just said. Their low came right around Valentine's Day of about $13.70. So from there, they're up over $6. So actually over $7 now at $21. So it's been a nice run from their nadir in February as well, even though they are off their highs of about $23 set back in June. So interesting year for telephone and data systems. A very boring name that doesn't really seem to convey what's going on with this name, because it's in our odd block a lot, including today when someone coming in looks like they paid through the offer for 3,606 of the SEP 22 halves. The market was 55 at 65. They said, bam, we'll pay 70 cents for those bad boys. That's about a 49 vol if you are intrigued, listeners. The stock was pretty much right here, 2105 when these went up. Mr. Rock Lobster, we've talked about this name in the past. I think you're the one who was trying to figure out whether you made markets in this name in the past or not. It's been around for a while. It's maybe a deceptively sleepy name, at least from the title. But it does have some moments of action out here, including today. What do you think of somebody paying through the offer for these SEP 22 halves, sir?
I have to say, it is kind of a sleepy, here's a question. Everybody knows what Amazon does, right? Okay, Amazon. Does anybody have a clue on this planet what telephone data systems does?
They make telephones and also data systems.
They make telephones and data systems.
They make old school rotary phones. You have to dial it and let go and wait for it to come back. They make those exclusively. That's it.
You know what? What's funny is it's still got the same strikes it did 25 years ago.
I heard they've also cornered the market on payphones.
Because it does. I mean, I remember it kind of be a growing stock a while ago. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's sort of I think you might be right though, because the stock hasn't done much in a while. I mean, it moves around, but anyway. Again, this is a hard one to buy out of the money calls on unless you feel like you know something. They've got a lot of I guess they've had a lot of write-offs recently and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know what happened to this company, but I feel like you have to know there's no earnings, there's no nothing. So why are you buying these calls is my question. So I would just watch this as a to be watched, but I think it's a tough road to hoe those 70s.
Why are you paying through the offer? I heard they may be opening a new market for their payphones, so fingers crossed.
Yes, they're going to open up the little payphone boxes all over the U.S.
Coming back, baby.
Can you imagine how those would be vandalized today? For people bashing them apart to get the quarters or whatever.
Good times, listeners. You like these SEP, what are they, 22 halves for 70 cents, listeners? Somebody did. I'm not sure they're on my book for you gotta do this trade, but intriguing out here. Speaking of trades I have to do, Mr. Rock Lobster, it's a quiet, kind of nonsense day out there. Perfect day to highlight. This one makes me chuckle just looking at it. This is definitely my favorite trade of the day. I don't know if it's going to be one of the trade of the year contenders. Maybe for just the sheer audacity and cynicism of it, maybe. But I love these. So this is Vertex Energy, ticker symbol Vintner, VTNR. So nothing at all to do with the name. Trading a whopping 48 cents today, listeners. Having a good day, up about 4 cents or nearly 10%. On the year, though, it's been just a dumpster fire. It's off almost 90% or $3.75. So it's been a rough year for Vertex Energy. I'm trying to see. Looks like they're a refiner pretty much. And clearly not doing great at it because they are being taken to the woodshed out here right now. Again, trading 48 cents down from $4. They actually hit a high last year of $5.40. So from that high, they're really just falling off a precipice. And Mr. Rock Lobster, it appears someone thinks they are going to fall much farther. As far as they can fall when they're trading around 50 cents. So yeah, with the stock this morning at actually 45 cents, so even lower, a paper came in and said, SEP 5, that'd be ridiculous. SEP half puts, how are they? They got a market of a nickel at 15 cents, which in and of itself is kind of ridiculously wide for a 50-cent put, but I digress. They said, done, I will buy 2,500 of those puts for 15 cents. So yes, you heard that right, listeners. When the stock was trading 45 cents, someone said, I will pay 30% of the value of said stock for a hedge below the 35-cent level for the next month. Oh, this one just brings a smile to my face. Good thing the Viceroy isn't on the show with us. This one might put him over the edge, Mr. Rocklops. I don't know. It might send him spinning into a coronary episode or something. But yeah, this one, just for the sheer ridiculousness, the audacity, and the just downright cynicism of it, this has to make our list. Mr. Rock Lobster, what say you? Someone paying 15 cents to hedge a 45-cent stock through next month.
Well, I either hedge or just think it's, so here's the thing about this so you got the last 4 years, we've had the Green New Deal. We've had Biden administration pumping tons of money into renewable energy and recycling. And this company recycles oil and does renewable and conventional fuel recycling. They got $3 billion of revenue and they can't make any money.
Yeah, what is going on? Are they stealing? Are they embezzling? What is happening at this company?
All I have is questions. And the person buying these puts clearly has no questions anymore. The only number they're seeing is 0 for this stock. And it's been around for 10 years, so it's not like a new thing, but you figure, okay, they got 68 collection vehicles. I mean, that's kind of all they have is 68 collection vehicles. They refine, anyway, feedstock refine. I don't know. So they just take junk food and make oil out of it. I don't know what the heck, something like that. But all I know is they have real revenue, yet I don't know. There's got to be a story behind this company, but right now it actually has revenue, but just gobbling money like crazy. So I think could be a name to watch, but it sure doesn't look very promising.
It seems like a name that, we had $1 billion in revenue. We made no profit, but we paid our CEO $995 million. That sounds like the kind of thing
I could see that. I think he probably, I'm not sure if he's collecting that much, but
something is wrong.
What do they do? Keep paying the executive class stock. That's kind of like what Snap does. Snap never makes money because they keep paying the executive class all the stock. Eventually, they're just going to own the whole company. But yeah, maybe it could be something like that. But it definitely, you would think there'd be money in there, but they're not catching it in this company.
They made a revenue of $3.17 billion last year.
Yeah.
Man.
Riddle me that.
I'm missing something here. We're both missing something, Mr. Rocklobster.
We are clearly missing something.
Someone is not missing it when they bought these puts. They said this thing is a dumpster fire and it's going straight to 0. You like these, listeners? 30% of the value of the stock just to hedge it below 35 cents for the next month. Or would you rather just at this point go big or go home, take a flyer on the full 45 cents and then see what happens? This chart is not exactly encouraging, but intriguing stuff out here, listeners. And we're all about the intrigue as we keep on rolling. You know what's always intriguing on the show, listeners? It's the strategy block. So let's get to it.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, listeners, let's get to it. Uncle Mike, sir. What a well-timed strategy block you have this week. How to hedge your stock holdings under 50 cents. Amazing. Go, sir.
Oh boy, that's if that was our 80s trivia, I think the Rock Lobster would have me beat on such a thing, because he'd find a way to do it somehow, by gosh. And I really don't know if I could even know how to hedge a stock under 50 cents. I will say it cannot be done.
Well, someone just proved you wrong today, sir. They paid through the nose for the half-puts.
I suppose you're right. All right. So today I want to talk about wash sales, because it is a new monthly expiration cycle. And I'm just kind of going through this myself right now, so it's a little bit timely for me, in that wash sales with covered calls, something to be aware of. Let's say that first off, what is a wash sale? When you sell a stock for a loss, you can deduct it you get a deduction on your taxes. There's a little more to it than that, but essentially if you buy a stock at 100 and then you sell it at 95, then you get that $5 that you can claim as a loss on your taxes. Up to a certain amount, there's long-term versus short-term rules that exist, but for the most part, if you lose money, you get to deduct it. Now, with that being said, in the covered call world, you got to be kind of careful with it. Because let's say that example that I gave you, you buy a stock at 100, you sell it at 95. Well, great, you have a $5 loss that you can claim. But if you buy back that same stock within 30 days, then you can't claim that loss anymore because it's known as a wash sale. And so from there, you need to be careful when doing so. Now, if you're trading in an IRA, everything that I'm about to say means absolutely nothing to you. You can do this in an IRA all you want, but I'm referring to people that are outside of an IRA. And so let's say that you're selling covered calls and the stock goes from 100 to 95, and you were selling the 100 calls month in, month out. You got a bunch of income and you're happy with it. The stock went down $5, and over the last 6 months, you've sold $8 in covered call premium, let's say. Well, great. Overall, you're ahead on it. And so that's wonderful. And so when you sell that stock at 95, the loss offsets a bunch of the gains, and you're only going to have $3 in short-term gains, which is what you should have. However, beware of the wash sale gremlins, because they are out to get you. If you buy back that stock and sell a covered call on it the following month, or right after you get called away, or do it within 30 days, which is what a lot of covered call traders do, then you won't get to claim that $5 loss on your taxes. And so what you need to do is one of two things, essentially, or what I do are one of two things. One, just wait 30 days until you're actually going to get back into that stock. In the meantime, what I would do, or what I'm doing actually today as we speak, I'm using an index to sell covered calls in replacement of that stock for the course of the next month. So that way we can still get the premium. It's not perfect, but it's something to where you'll still be able to claim that loss on your taxes and offset your losses and gains for covered calls. So to give you an idea of this, on a high net worth client, I did a calculation that kind of inspired me to make this actually a thing. And based on a tax rate of the highest tax rate of 37%, and I didn't even factor in state taxes because this client lived in a state that didn't tax. It wouldn't be an issue. But with this, a study that I did for a client just on my covered call portfolio, the wash sales, the tax, because you can't deduct wash sales, comes out to roughly 1.5% of non-performance on the portfolio. So in other words, if the wash sale rule didn't exist, and we just did wash sales and we didn't care, we treated this client's portfolio like an IRA, then 1.5% is the difference. And so that can add up over time. And just like a thing that you may not be looking for as you're selling covered calls, something that you really need to be aware of, because 1% over time, that can be a big deal, and it's easily avoidable if you can do some things to get around it. And that is the strategy block for today.
All right, listeners, let's keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. I teased our poll at the start of the show here, listeners. So let's get into the results right now. We asked you quite simply, do you expect the convention this week to have any material impact on volatility in markets, or is it just another dog and pony show? Again, these kind of questions, I know it's hard. Put aside your political leanings. You love the Dems, you think it's going to be a banger. You hate the Dems, you think it's going to be nothing. Just look at it from a pure markets. That's what we're trying to distill at the end of the day, listeners. And right now, listen, I know you folks do a pretty good job of that for the most part. 83.3% say no, it's just a dog and pony show. And 16.7% say yes. Kind of hard to disagree with that. We know the nominees going in. There's no surprises. If it was going to be an open convention like they were talking about just a few weeks ago, that would have been a much more of a market, I think, moving event. But, you never know. There could be some surprises. Maybe, who knows? Some dark horse candidate emerges out of nowhere somehow and steals the throne. We shall see. But right now, 83% of you saying no joy, no excitement on the horizon instead, at least from the convention. So let's go around the horn. Let's see what you folks are looking at for a little bit of excitement right now. Let's start with the rock. Oh, by the way, before we get out of here, talking about you folks really quickly. You folks are going on about FUBO in the chat. And also, you liked Andrew's nugget about not trading cheap, or I should say options on cheap stocks. Age repeating the old Viceroy line, and a little bit of Don Schlesinger maybe too, even though he's more of the don't buy options crowd. But Age says never trade options on a stock under $10. In fact, never buy a stock under $10. Interesting. I don't know if I concur with that, but interesting. Frank, he says you must not trade Ford. Then yeah, that was Brian Overby's old line. Whenever we used to ask him, he'd get asked on OPR, what is the cheapest you will trade, or what cheapest stock you will trade options on? What is the level? What is the cutoff? He says wherever Ford's trading. So right now, Ford's hanging around the 10 handle. I don't know if it's below it today or not, but it very well might be. I know it was not too long ago. In which case, I guess no Ford for you folks out there, listeners. Let's go around the horn. Let's start with the rockingest of lobsters. What are you keeping an eye on for this week, sir?
Well, yeah, it's a week of waiting if you're a vol trader mostly. So FOMC Wednesday, are they doing anything with rates? I don't think so. Powell, they're going to give some talk in Jackson Hole. I guess they go in the summertime so they can mountain bike and not ski. Must be nice for them. So those are the two big. And then I would everybody watch how the NVIDIA earnings straddle is $14, which is over 10%, which is running kind of high for NVIDIA. I think the average, I was just doing a video for OP University on this. The straddles have averaged 6.7%. Granted, those are inexpensive relative, because NVIDIA, the last, 6 earnings have just had crazy, we got to be realistic, crazy, but they've outperformed most of them. So, I think, this feels like the highest earnings straddle that we've seen in a while at $14. So that's on the AUG 30. So I guess the market, the stock just moved $30. So keep an eye on that. See if the FOMO crowd keeps bidding it up into earnings. I feel that really if they're buying options in NVIDIA, people are bullish. So right now, I have to say it. I know it's up $4, but there is a lot of heavy buy action in there. And I think in that stock, when the vol's up, people are looking for upside.
Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday episode?
Well, I think that in addition to everything that Andrew had said, I'm continuing to watch bonds. With the talk of the rate cuts happening, they're going to cut rates, they're going to cut rates, they're going to cut rates. Just watching to see how sneaky the bonds can get, to see if they can sneak up a bunch and then maybe do something with them along those lines. So in addition to everything that Andrew had said, watching the bonds, seeing if they're acting sneaky.
That music means no more sneakiness for us, listeners. But you don't worry, if you need a little more action in your lives, if you're hanging out in the live, hang out. We'll pump some fun stuff in there. I will be back post-haste with some special guests in the crypto hot seat to hold court on all things crypto, vol, and derivatives and all sorts of fun coming up on the Crypto Rundown in a little bit. So stay tuned for all of that fun, listeners. And then, of course, for the usual array of content coming at you this week. Boot camp on Wednesday. Did you enjoy our 301st episode spectacular? I know we enjoyed it. So all sorts of fun to be had on boot camp until we're back again on Thursday. And Mr. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you as once again our victor this week. If folks want more Uncle Mike goodness in their lives, where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw. Plethora of content coming out with webinars and just insights in general. Also, if you are looking for a financial advisor that does delve in the option product, feel free to reach out to me. Go to my website, stcharleswealth.com. I'll give you a call. I always enjoy talking to any of our listeners.
And Mr. Rock Lobster, if they want some Option Pit U goodness, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to Option Pit University. If you want to learn how to trade options in a practical way, I believe, unless somebody shows me otherwise, is the best source. If you would just want video content with updated video content regularly, check it out. Learn options at your own pace. There you go. Option Pit University, optionpit.com.
OptionPit.com, the place to go. And you know where to go to continue your support of this show. Public.com, they're supporting this show, so do a good turn to them as well. Go check out their platform. Kick the tires on that, easy for me to say, on that rebate. If you like getting paid to trade options, and hey, who doesn't? And also give me your feedback, what you like, what you'd like to see added to the platform. It's all viable, it's all helpful for them at the end of the day. Public.com is the place to go. Speaking of going to places, I just posted a fun flash poll. It'll be running for the next day or so. So if you're listening out there on the podcast, you will have time to play along as well. Add options on the Twitter machines. In addition to the convention fun, we're just talking about these VIX trades. And we were talking about these VIX OCC 18 puts last week. Everyone was all jazzed about those. We got this big print today of the OCC 20s going up for $1.76. So we thought, gun to your head, you had to buy one of these, hold them to expiration. Which one are you going to do? You're going to buy the OCC 18 puts for $2.15 or the OCC 20 calls for $1.76. Choose now or forever hold your peace. At Options is the place to go to make your voice heard. Back again in a little bit for the Crypto Rundown, and then back again with the rest of our usual array of content until I'm back again here with this crazy crew plus the Flow Master on Thursday. Another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Most options trading platforms are commission-free, and there are some that don't charge per-contract fees. Public.com goes a step further. When you trade options on Public, there are no commissions, no per-contract fees, and you get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. That means it costs less than $0 per transaction. In other words, instead of paying to place options trades, you literally earn money, and that money can add up fast. If you trade 1,000 option contracts on Public, you'll earn up to $180 in rebates. 10,000 contracts? Up to almost $1,200. It's pretty obvious why NerdWallet recently gave options trading on Public 5 out of 5 stars. Because Public really stands out for the cost of its options trades. Their words, not ours. If you want to start paying less than $0 to trade options, check out Public.com and get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures in podcast description. U.S. members only. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.